The first time Karen marched into my backyard, I thought she was joking. She pointed at my pool. Blue water shimmering under the afternoon sun, and snapped. "This is against homeowners association policy. We can't have eyesores like this around here." Eyesore. My jaw nearly hit the ground. That pool was the one good thing I'd worked for. The one little piece of peace I had after long days grinding at work. "Excuse me," I said, blinking. "It's my pool. On my property." She folded her arms. Smug grin plastered on her face. "And it's my neighborhood. If you want to live here, you follow our rules." God, that voice. High-pitched. Grating. Like nails on a chalkboard. My fists clenched at my sides. But I kept my cool. "Karen, the homeowners association doesn't own my backyard." She smirked, tilting her sunglasses down. "We'll see about that." That's how it started. A war of whispers, threats, and paperwork. Every week, some new violation notice arrived in my mailbox. Overgrown grass, my lawn was trimmed. Unsanctioned paint color, the house had been that color when I bought it. Unauthorized structure, she meant the pool. It was harassment, pure and simple. I sat one night, sitting on my porch with a beer, staring at the rippling water under the moonlight. Why do people like her exist? The homeowners association should have been about community, not control. But Karen, she thrived on control. The twist. She wasn't just a board member. She was the president. "Drain it," she told me one morning, strutting in like she owned the place, clipboard in hand. "By next week, or we'll fine you $500 a day." I laughed, an actual, sharp laugh that startled her. "You're out of your mind." Her lips curled. "You'll regret this." If only she knew. Because I wasn't some pushover homeowner. I had every document, every deed, every zoning code saved neatly in a binder. And when I pulled it out, when I showed her the county's official stamp approving the pool, her smile faltered for the first time. But she didn't stop. No. Karen doubled down. The following weekend, I caught her sneaking into my yard with a wrench in one hand and a hose in the other. She was actually trying to siphon the water. My water. Out of the pool. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" My voice cracked across the yard like thunder. Karen froze, eyes wide, before spinning around with that fake innocence. "Oh, just inspecting for safety hazards." "By draining it." She scoffed, shrugging. "Standing water breeds mosquitoes. I'm protecting the neighborhood." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Protecting the neighborhood. The only thing she was protecting was her own fragile ego. The argument escalated. She jabbed a finger at my chest. I jabbed back. Verbally. Neighbors peeked over fences. Whispers carried through the hedges. This wasn't just a dispute anymore. It was a show. And then came the night everything shifted. Sheriff Daniels showed up. Apparently, Karen had filed a formal complaint. Said I was endangering the community, violating health ordinances, creating a nuisance. The sheriff, gruff but fair, knocked on my door, hat tipped low. "Mind if I take a look?" he asked. "Be my guest." I muttered, heat rising in my chest. We walked out back. The pool glimmered under the floodlights. Clear, chlorinated, perfectly maintained. Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Looks fine to me." But Karen wasn't done. She stormed in, waving papers, spitting accusations. "It's not fine. It's illegal. He's endangering our children." Children. I almost laughed again. Karen didn't even have kids. The sheriff sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Ma'am, unless you have actual evidence of a violation." "I'll show you," she barked, stomping toward the pool. And here's where fate stepped in. Karen, in her rage, didn't see the puddle she'd made earlier while fiddling with her hose. Her heels, ridiculously tall for a backyard confrontation. Slipped. Ah! The sound cut through the night. A shriek, followed by a splash loud enough to send waves slapping the edges. Karen flailed, arms thrashing, hair plastered across her face as she sank under, then popped back up sputtering. "Oh my God!" Gasps erupted from the neighbors watching. I'll be honest, I didn't rush to help. Not at first. I just stood there, lips pressed tight, watching karma unfold in real time. The sheriff, though, rushed forward, pulling her toward the edge. She clung to him like a drowned cat, mascara streaking, blouse clinging. "Are you okay, ma'am?" Daniels asked, trying not to laugh. She coughed, water streaming from her nose. He pushed me. "What?" My voice cracked like a whip. "Are you kidding me?" The sheriff turned, deadpan. "I saw the whole thing. You slipped." Silence. Sweet, heavy silence. The neighbors started chuckling, muffled at first, then louder. One even clapped. Karen's face burned red, though whether from shame or fury, couldn't tell. She pointed at me with a trembling hand. "This isn't over," she screeched, still dripping. But it was. It was because the sheriff didn't leave after that. No, he asked to see my paperwork. I handed over the binder. He flipped through, nodding, eyebrows lifting. "Everything checks out," he said firmly. "You've got every right to have this pool." Karen gaped, mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Fitting, given her recent plunge. And then the final blow. "Ma'am," Daniels said, turning to her, "trespassing is a criminal offense. You can't just enter someone's yard without permission, let alone tamper with their property." Her jaw dropped. "Trespassing? I'm the Homeowners Association president. And that gives you exactly zero authority on private property." He shot back. Neighbors murmured in agreement. Phones were out. Oh yes, the whole scene was caught on video. Karen, soaked to the bone, mascara streaked, sheriff laying down the law. The next Homeowners Association meeting. A disaster for her. Half the neighborhood demanded her resignation. The other half mocked her so relentlessly she couldn't speak without people mimicking a splash. Someone even brought a pool floatie to the meeting and set it on her chair. I sat in the back, arms crossed, lips twitching. Sweet justice. But the twist. She didn't just lose her position. She lost her lawsuit. Oh yes, she'd actually filed one against me after the fall, claiming emotional distress and public humiliation. Except the judge, after watching the neighbor's footage, dismissed it in under 10 minutes. Karen stormed out of that courtroom, shoes squeaking with every step, and I swear, the universe itself was laughing. I leaned back, exhaling slowly, the weight finally lifting. The pool sparkled brighter that evening, like it knew it had survived the war. And Karen, she moved away 3 months later. House sold. Reputation in tatters. Sometimes karma doesn't knock. Sometimes it dives headfirst into cold water, right in front of everyone who needed to see it. So if you're listening, if you're watching, remember this: when someone tries to control your peace, hold your ground. Let the truth and maybe a little gravity do the rest. And hey, if you loved this story of karma striking hard, don't forget to hit subscribe and drop a comment below. I'll never forget the sound of that gate creaking. It was like the opening note to a song I didn't want to hear. Sharp, rusty and loud, cutting into the morning air. Squeak, clank. I froze on the porch with my coffee halfway to my lips. My wife, Sarah, was just tightening the last bolt on the hinge. And then I heard it. Heels striking against the pavement like a gavel coming down in a courtroom. "Karen, you can't do that. You can't just change the gate," she screeched, her voice slicing through the quiet neighborhood like broken glass. Oh God. Here we go again. See, Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-appointed sheriff of our homeowners association. The kind who thought every hedge, every mailbox, every trash bin belonged to her domain. She was always watching, always ready to pounce. But this time, she walked right into a storm she didn't even know was brewing. Sarah straightened, brushed her hands on her jeans and looked at Karen with this calm, steady expression that somehow made me nervous. The old latch was broken. She said softly. It wasn't locking properly. I fixed it. Fixed it. Karen spat the words like they were poison. You tampered with homeowners association property. That's vandalism. You could be fined. She whipped out her phone dramatically. Reported. Reported. That word hit me like a slap. I almost laughed. Almost. But I caught Sarah's eyes and I saw something flicker there. Not fear. Not anger. Something else. Like she was waiting. Go ahead. Sarah murmured. Voice low. Karen blinked. For a second. She hesitated. But then she dialed. Loud. Deliberate beeps. My stomach sank. Though I had no reason to feel guilty. It wasn't just about the gate anymore. It was about power. Control. And then came the twist. The part Karen never saw coming. Because when she reported my wife, she wasn't just calling in a petty complaint about a rusty latch. She was poking a hornet's nest. She didn't know who Sarah really was. I stepped closer, almost whispering, You sure you want to do this? Karen sneered, already on the phone with the homeowners association rep. Absolutely. Rules are rules. Some people think they're above them. But not in this neighborhood. Sarah's lips curved into the faintest smile. A smile that made me shiver. Later that afternoon, the homeowners association board demanded an emergency meeting. Karen strutted into the clubhouse like she'd just been crowned queen. Her heels echoed off the tile floor, each step punctuated by the smug smirk plastered on her face. The board sat stiffly around a long oak table. Papers stacked neatly. Pens aligned. Karen slapped her folder down with a theatrical flourish. This woman. She pointed dramatically at Sarah. Illegally altered community property. I demand fines. Immediate action and possible expulsion proceedings. I swear I heard thunder rumble outside. Though maybe it was just my imagination. Sarah leaned back, crossed her arms and said nothing. The silence stretched. Karen basked in it, certain she had won. And then, finally, Sarah spoke. Do you really want to go down this road, Karen? The board shifted uncomfortably. Whispers. Throats cleared. Karen laughed. High-pitched. Fake. What? Are you threatening me now? No. Sarah said calmly. Just asking. Because if you file that report, if you push for penalties, you'll force us to disclose our background. And once that happens, she paused, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly. It'll all be on record. I swear you could hear Karen's confidence crack. A little gasp escaped her, like she'd just stepped into ice water. What background? One of the board members asked curiously. Karen's hand trembled as she smoothed her papers. It doesn't matter. She broke the rules. Sarah reached slowly into her bag. The sound of the zipper unzipping echoed like a drum roll. She pulled out an ID card and slid it across the table. Military insignia gleamed under the fluorescent lights. My wife wasn't just a rule breaker. She was a federal officer, recently reassigned after years of service in high-security operations. The room went silent. Dead silent. Karen's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth, closed it again, opened it once more like a fish out of water. Oh my God. One of the board members whispered. Exactly. Sarah said softly. Karen's face went pale. Her lipstick suddenly too bright against her bloodless skin. The arrogance drained out of her like water swirling down a sink. And that was the first time I saw her break. But here's the thing. Karen wasn't the kind to back down completely. No. Like a cornered cat. She lashed out even harder. The very next day, she plastered our driveway with violation notices. She called code enforcement on us for unauthorized modifications. She even tried to rally the neighbors, whispering poison into their ears about how dangerous we were, how Sarah was abusing her authority. I wanted to scream, to tear down every paper, to shout from the rooftops. But Sarah, she just watched. Calm. Patient. Why aren't you doing anything? I demanded one night, my voice breaking. She's turning everyone against us. Sarah sighed, placing her hand over mine. Because the louder she screams, the more obvious it becomes. Let her dig her own hole. And oh, did Karen dig? She staged photos of our trash cans left out too long. She even accused us of hosting illegal gatherings when all we'd done was barbecue with 2 friends. Each accusation more desperate, more unhinged. Until one night, when it all snapped. It was late. Crickets chirped in the warm summer air. Sarah and I were sitting on the porch, the glow of string lights casting a soft halo around us. Then, footsteps. Heavy, angry, fast. Karen. She stormed up the walkway, face twisted with rage, papers clutched in her fist. You think you're untouchable, don't you? You think your precious badge means you can break all the rules. Sarah stood slowly, eyes level with hers. Go home, Karen. No, I won't. This is my neighborhood.
Mine.
And I will not let some outsider come in and destroy everything. Her voice cracked, wild and shrill, echoing off the quiet houses. Porch lights flicked on up and down the street. Curtains twitched. People were watching. Karen, I said carefully, you need to calm down. Shut up, she shrieked, spinning on me. And then, in a flash of madness, she shoved Sarah. Gasps from the neighbors. My heart stopped. But Sarah didn't stumble, didn't fall. She just stepped forward, calm as ever, and said, You just crossed the line. That's when headlights swept across the street. A black SUV rolled up, window sliding down. A man leaned out, badge glinting in the beam of the porch lights. One of Sarah's colleagues. Off duty but watching. Karen froze. Her entire body stiffened like she'd been carved out of stone. And in that single moment, she knew. She was finished. The lawsuit hit a month later. Not from us. From the Homeowners Association itself. Turns out, Sarah's background forced the board to review every single one of Karen's complaints. And what did they find? Fraud. Harassment. Misuse of Homeowners Association funds. The irony. The woman who lived to report everyone else had just reported herself into destruction. When the sheriff's deputies showed up at her door, Karen wailed, clutching at her pearls like some tragic actress in a soap opera. But no one was buying tickets to her show anymore. Neighbors turned their backs. The board stripped her title. She lost everything. Her power, her influence, her voice. And still, I remember the look on her face that night on our porch. That frozen, pale, hollow expression when she realized who Sarah really was. That was the exact moment her empire began to crumble. Some nights, I sit out there on the porch with my coffee, listening to the creak of the gate Sarah fixed. Squeak, clank, and I smile, because every sound of that latch reminds me, no matter how loud they scream, bullies always meet their reckoning. Karen thought she was the law. She learned real fast what the law actually looks like. And in the end, justice wasn't just served. It was sealed, signed and delivered with the bitter taste of her own downfall. So if you've ever had a Karen in your life, Remember this, sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting back. Sometimes, it's just letting the truth catch up to them. Thank you for sticking with me through this story. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Homeowners Association justice tales, because you never know which Karen will end up in the next lawsuit. It started with 3 sharp knocks on my door and a letter slipped under the frame. Notice of violation, unauthorized landscaping modifications. What the hell? I had only planted 2 rose bushes near my walkway, but the letter had that unmistakable HOA logo on it and a signature scrawled in loopy cursive. Karen Whitmore, HOA chairwoman. That was my first real run-in with her. God help me. I live in one of those picturesque suburban neighborhoods outside of DC, rows of identical pastel houses, perfectly trimmed lawns, and folks who wave just enough to seem polite. But behind those picket fences, oh, there are snakes. And Karen? She was the queen cobra. At first, I ignored the letter. I figured it was a misunderstanding. I just moved in 2 months earlier after transferring to a desk role at Quantico. I wanted quiet, peace, just something slower after 14 years in field ops. But peace doesn't exist where a Karen holds a clipboard. 2 days later, a second letter came, then a fine, $250, for landscape violations. That was followed by a notice threatening legal action. Over roses. You can imagine how absurd that felt. So I did what any sane person would do. I showed up at the next HOA meeting. It was held in the community clubhouse, a bright little room with a weird smell, kind of like lemon disinfectant and stale coffee. I walked in, nodded at a few neighbors, and took a seat in the back. I didn't want drama. I just wanted to explain, maybe clear things up. But as soon as Karen saw me, oh boy, her eyes narrowed like a hawk spotting prey. "Excuse me," she said, slamming her gavel way too hard on the table. "This meeting is for residents in good standing. You are currently under violation review and are not permitted to attend." "Wait, what? I am a resident," I said calmly, "and I have every right to be here." That's when she smirked and said the words that lit the match. "Security, please remove this individual from the premises." 2 security guards hired rent-a-cops in matching windbreakers approached. The room fell quiet. My pulse ticked up, but I kept my tone even. "Don't touch me." One guard hesitated. The other grabbed my arm. "Bad move." In a swift, practiced motion, I twisted out of his grip, showed my badge, and held it up for everyone to see. "Federal Bureau of Investigation. You will unhand me. Now." Oh, the silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Karen's jaw actually unhinged like a puppet. One of the guards immediately stepped back. The other just blinked, stunned. Wait, you're FBI?" Karen sputtered. "Yes. And now you're going to explain why you think you can illegally bar a homeowner from a public HOA meeting." The silence stretched too long. But I wasn't done. "Also, I have been tracking your activities for the past 2 weeks. You've issued over 30 violation letters, all with forged time-stamped photos." "That's absurd," she barked, her voice cracking. "And 5 fraudulent citations to elderly residents who don't have the means to fight back. I have statements. I have evidence. You didn't know who you were messing with, did you?" Karen's face went pale. She opened her mouth, then shut it again, then opened it. 2 was just enforcing the rules. That's what the HOA requires. I let out a low breath. Funny, because I also have a copy of the actual HOA charter. And nowhere does it authorize unilateral fines without board votes. So either you've been freelancing or you've been embezzling HOA funds to cover legal threats that never went to court. A neighbor gasped. Another leaned forward. This wasn't just HOA drama, no, it was a bomb going off in the middle of suburbia. Karen's voice cracked. "2 need to speak to my attorney." I smiled. "You'll get the chance. But first, I'd suggest sitting down, because what comes next is going to affect you permanently." That meeting turned into chaos. Neighbors began shouting. One older man stood and said she fined him $500 for a moldy mailbox that he had replaced 2 years ago. Another woman said Karen trespassed on her property to take photos. then threatened her with a lien. The board was stunned. 2 members immediately called for an emergency vote to suspend Karen's powers. But here's the kicker, the real twist. After the meeting, I received an anonymous manila envelope on my porch. Inside, copies of checks, personal checks, from Karen, written to someone named Deborah Whitmore, her sister, who owns a landscaping company. A company that, surprise, surprise, had won all the new HOA contracts this past year. Over $40,000 worth. I ran a quick database check. That company? Fake website.
Fake ein.
No filed tax records. Fraud. Plain and simple. And guess what else? Some of those violations she handed out? They were targeted. People who refused to hire Deborah's company suddenly got violations. Fines. Threats. Oh, she was running a racket. HOA extortion. And she almost got away with it. Until she messed with the wrong house. My house. I forwarded everything: photos, copies of fines, sworn statements, bank records to the local prosecutor. Then I made one more call. Agent Lacey, I said, I've got a homeowner association fraud case for you. Organized manipulation, wire fraud, forged documents, possibly money laundering. You want it? The answer was yes. And just like that, the investigation began. Karen was subpoenaed within the week. I wish I could describe the look on her face when she was served. But I wasn't home. I was at the gym. Still, my neighbor filmed it on his Ring cam. She screamed, slammed the door, then came back out and screamed some more. She tried to blame it all on clerical errors. Claimed she never wrote those checks. That someone must have forged her signature. But the FBI's forensic team? They don't play. The signature matched dozens of other documents she'd signed over the past year, including the ones she posted publicly on HOA letterhead. She was done. They charged her with fraud, forgery, and conspiracy to defraud homeowners. And you know what the most ironic part is? She had fined me $250 for roses. Now she's facing over $250,000 in damages and possible prison time. Sometimes karma doesn't knock. Kicks the damn door in. Karen's trial date was set for the end of spring. But the lawsuit? That hit her like a second freight train. Over 30 residents joined a class action suit once the truth came out. People who had been threatened, fined, embarrassed in front of their neighbors, all of them came forward with stories, paperwork, photos, receipts. One woman, Mrs. Dalton, sobbed on the local news. She told me if I didn't pay the fine, I'd lose my house. I thought I was going to die in debt. Karen tried to play the victim, said she was just following protocol, that it was a misunderstanding, and she'd never intended to cause harm. But every word out of her mouth was like nails on a chalkboard. No apology, no remorse, just crocodile tears in expensive heels. The judge wasn't having it. He hit her with a temporary restraining order from all HOA business and froze her personal accounts pending litigation. Then came the cherry on top. The forged landscaping contracts? Deborah's fake company? Yeah, it turns out Karen funneled money through it to pay off her personal credit card debt. She wasn't just a control freak with a clipboard, she was a criminal in pearls. The FBI's case was airtight. The paper trail was cleaner than a fresh-pressed uniform. And you better believe the lawsuit stuck. Final tally: 3 felony charges, $287,000 in pending restitution, a lifetime ban from participating in any HOA or neighborhood governance. And her house? She had to sell it to cover her legal fees. The new buyers? A lovely couple who planted 6 rose bushes right out front. Poetic, isn't it? The neighborhood's calmer now. The board elected a new chair. Someone honest. Someone who doesn't weaponize bylaws. And me? I still live in the same house. My roses are blooming like fireworks in July. I've even joined the HOA board, not because I want power, but because someone has to keep the next Karen in check. So the next time someone tells you HOA drama is just petty suburban stuff, remember this story. Some Karens don't just write tickets, they forge, they defraud, and they dig their own graves with their own pens. And if you enjoyed that satisfying takedown and want more real stories with a twist of justice, Don't forget to hit subscribe on my YouTube channel. New HOA lawsuit stories every week. It started with a bang. Literally. The wooden gate to my backyard slammed open so hard it cracked the post. I spun around on the patio, my drink slipping from my hand and shattering against the concrete. What the hell? Four people stormed into men. One short woman in a ridiculous navy blazer with an embroidered HOA security patch, and another guy with sunglasses and a clipboard. They wore matching black polo shirts and cargo pants like they were about to breach a warehouse. One of the men had a plastic holster on his hip with what looked suspiciously like a BB gun spray-painted black. "Step away from the shed," the woman barked, pointing her finger at me like I was under arrest. I blinked, heart kicking into high gear. "Excuse me? You are in violation of Article 6 unauthorized structure within HOA jurisdiction. This is an official inspection." She tossed her fake ponytail over her shoulder, eyes blazing like she thought she was on Cops. I looked around. Was this a prank? A dare? My neighbor, Paul, had joked once about Karen down the street calling herself the HOA sheriff. But this was nuts. "You can't just barge into someone's yard," I said, stepping forward. "This is private property." She whipped out a laminated card and held it up like a badge. "We have authority under Community Enforcement Protocol," she declared. "We are the HOA police." That's when I noticed its small text under the shiny logo. Neighborhood Watch, not a legal authority. I squinted, my military instincts clicking in. The edges were frayed. The print was uneven. It was clearly forged. Before I could react, Paul stepped out from the side of my shed, full tactical gear, helmet, vest, even a GoPro on his chest. His voice was calm, low, unmistakably the voice of a former staff sergeant. "Karen, you just made a big mistake." Karen, the name just froze. Her eyes darted from Paul to me, then back to the holstered pistol-shaped object on her friend's hip. Her facade cracked just for a second. "You're impersonating law enforcement," Paul continued, pulling his phone out and dialing. "And you're trespassing on federal land." Karen's mouth dropped. "Federal land? My backyard borders a veterans training easement," I said, crossing my arms. "Which you would know if you ever bothered to read the community zoning maps instead of scribbling fake violations on index cards." The clipboard guy stepped back. "Wait, what?" Paul didn't flinch. 911, yes. We've got 4 individuals impersonating officers, trespassing, and threatening homeowners. One appears to be armed. Karen screeched. No, we're not armed. This is Athos is for show." She motioned frantically to the spray-painted BB gun. "It's not even real." I nearly laughed, but it caught in my throat. My hands were trembling, not from fear, from fury. "We've warned you, Karen," I said, voice flat. 3 times this month. You forged fines. Tried to shut down a disabled vet's remodel. Harassed my wife over a wind chime. But today you crossed a line." There was a long silence. Then the unmistakable sound of sirens. Karen panicked. "You're blowing this out of proportion. This is a civil inspection. We're just making sure everyone complies. You can't sue me for that." Paul gave her a long look. "Watch me." It all unraveled fast. The fake HOA crew scattered like squirrels at a shotgun blast except Karen, who stood rooted in place as the sheriff's cruiser screeched to a halt outside the fence. 2 deputies came in hot. One cuffed the clipboard guy who had tried hopping the fence and fallen into my hydrangeas. The other took one look at Karen's badge and burst out laughing. "You seriously thought this would work?" he said, shaking his head. "Lady, this is fraud." Karen gasped. "It's not. It's just proactive community engagement." But the more she explained, the worse it got. The forged documents she carried were taken as evidence. Her little team had printed over 40 violation notices, all with fake ordinance codes and made-up fines, targeting anyone with political signs she didn't like or flags she thought were offensive. She even had a pending lawsuit log. She bragged about updating every Sunday in her garage, listing names of neighbors she intended to legally bankrupt into compliance. Paul glanced at me. "You recording this?" "You bet." Karen shrieked again when she noticed the blinking GoPro. "This is entrapment. You set me up." The deputy shook his head. "Ma'am, you set yourself up." The next week, the neighborhood message board exploded. Photos of Karen in cuffs. A link to the sheriff's press release. Neighborhood vigilante HOA impersonator charged with criminal trespass, forgery, and harassment. People cheered. Turns out, Karen wasn't even a real HOA board member. She'd been voted out 2 years ago, but kept acting like she was in charge. She had forged the HOA header on letters, created a fake email pretending to be the property manager, and used that fake authority to bully over a dozen residents, mostly elderly folks and veterans. She even doctored an HOA ledger to prove people owed her money. One woman almost paid her $1,200 for a tree trimming violation, until her son caught on and stopped the check. The fraud went deep, and the lawsuit, oh, it was coming. Paul and I teamed up with the local VFW, 3 other victims, and filed a civil lawsuit for damages, emotional distress, and impersonation of federal enforcement. Karen's little backyard power trip had cost her everything: her house, her savings, and whatever smidge of dignity she had left. But the most shocking twist? Karen's cousin was actually on the real HOA board. He came forward during discovery and admitted he tried to warn her to stop, but she threatened to expose his affair with the pool lifeguard, which wasn't true but typical Karen. Now he was testifying against her. Karen showed up to court in a beige suit 2 sizes too big, hair flat, lips pursed like she still thought she was the authority. But her voice shook. The judge didn't waste time. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged documents, fake badges, harassment logs, even voice memos where she referred to our neighbors as compliance cattle. When the video of her storming my backyard played, she buried her face in her hands. Her attorney barely looked at her. "Miss Gaines," the judge said sternly, "this isn't neighborhood discipline. This is a premeditated campaign of fraud and intimidation. The fact that you weaponized a fictional HOA role against veterans, the elderly, and your own community is reprehensible." She was fined, hit with a restraining order, and the lawsuit? We won. The court awarded us damages for emotional distress and trespassing. Karen was forced to sell her home to pay part of it off. Her name? Blacklisted from every legitimate HOA in the county. Weeks later, she tried to post an apology letter on the community board. It read, "I only wanted order." One comment summed it up perfectly. You wanted control. You got consequences. Now her house sits empty, yard overgrown, mailbox taped shut, a silent warning. Sometimes I still walk past with my dog and see the old sign she nailed to her fence. "This property is watched." Yeah, Karen. Now we watch you. And if you ever run into a fake HOA cop in your backyard, remember truth, law, and a good neighbor with combat boots will always win. Subscribe for more real drama, karma, and neighborhood justice, because the next lawsuit might be yours to file.